Good afternoon, Jayhawks, and welcome back to this week's episode of RCReplay. I'm your host, Andrew Lind. We got just 2 more weeks together as the first semester wraps up here in Lawrence, but Kansas's winter sports are now catching stride while the fall sports are merely over. On today's show, Kristen Howell tells us how the volleyball team is feeling after last night's tournament selection show, plus how other women's teams are faring. Emma Linetti is here to recap Kansas football's roller coaster season under first-year head coach Lance Leipold. Jordan Ziegler walks us through the big college football game from the weekend, plus who he thinks is best suited for the playoff. Kyle Mathis gives us the latest look inside the NBA, and I will walk you through the 3 plays that kept Kansas basketball from beating Dayton on Saturday. All this and more on RCReplay. Last night when I was scrolling on Twitter, I saw something about Kansas volleyball is going dancing. Kristen, what's the latest on the team, and how are other women's sports doing?
That's right, Andrew. You saw correct. Kansas volleyball is going dancing. But first, let's see what led them to the big dance. Kansas volleyball had 2 great games against TCU to end out the season at home, beating TCU in 5 sets to finish the game, with freshman Caroline Bien leading the team with 16 kills. Their second game against the Horned Frogs was another win. With a 3-1 win, the Jayhawks earned a few Big 12 honors that week too. Rachel Langs was named Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week, and Cameron Turner was the Big 12 Rookie of the Week. To finish off the regular seasons, the Jayhawks headed to Manhattan, and no, not the Big Apple, the little one, not too far from here. It was a Sunflower showdown like no other. KU beat K-State in the first match 3-1. Caroline Crawford led the team with 6 out of 18 blocks the team had. Its next match was a nail-biter, but the Jayhawks pushed through and beat the Wildcats 3-2 after trailing 2 sets. And for the 10th time in program history, the Jayhawks are headed to the NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament. They will head to Omaha this Thursday to face the Oregon Ducks. Kansas is one of 7 teams from the Big 12 headed to the tournament, and KU tied for 3rd in the conference with West Virginia and Iowa State. Head coach Bouchard said he is excited that there are 7 teams from the Big 12 selected for the tournament and can't wait to represent KU moving forward. Prior to the holiday weekend, KU's women's basketball defeated St. Louis 79-50 after starting the game in a scoring drought. Both the Billikens and the Jayhawks battled and ended neck and neck before heading to the locker room. Coming back from the break, the Jayhawks scored 26 in the 3rd and ultimately shut down the doors on St. Louis. The ladies spent their Thanksgiving weekend in Las Vegas at the South Point Shootout, and it's my hope that what happened in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas, as the Jayhawks took 1 out of 2 games out west. In its first game, Kansas faced number 11 Tennessee. With just over 3 minutes played in the first quarter, the Vols led 13-3, but Kansas ended the quarter on an 8-0 run, trailing by just 2 when the clock expired. Trailing by 3 at the half, Tennessee pulled away and gave the Jayhawks their first loss of the season, 68-58. In the second game, KU played the Miners from the University of Texas at El Paso. The Jayhawks scored the first 7 points of the game to build an 11-1 run before UTEP got its first basket. In the second half, KU's defense shut down the Miners and held them to a 29.4 shooting percentage. This gave the Jayhawks their 5th win of the season as they look to defeat the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley on Wednesday at Allen Fieldhouse. 2 of KU swimmers earned Big 12 honors this past week after performing extremely well in the Kansas Classic. Sophomore Claudia Dugan was named Big 12 Swimmer of the Week, and freshman Addie Barnes was named Big 12 Co-Newcomer of the Week. Both swimmers led the team in the Kansas Classic last weekend. Dugan finished her first in her events, while Barnes placed second in hers. The Kansas Classic finished out the fall competition, but the Jayhawks will be back January 6th in Hawaii to start their spring season. Continuing on with Kansas athletics, Emma, what do you have for Kansas football?
Yeah, Kristen, KU football closed out its season Saturday, falling short to West Virginia 35-28 on senior night. The team ended their season with a 2-10 record, but this year it felt different. Here's what went well, for my opinion, in the Jayhawks. This was Lance Leipold's first season as KU's coach, and although the 2-10 record was in line with Kansas' season since 2010, it had a different energy under Leipold. Kansas competed in the Big 12, nearly knocking off Oklahoma, TCU, and West Virginia, not to mention defeating Texas and Austin. Coach Leipold said, "Some of the gaps are starting to close, and hopefully next season we can take their next steps." The Jayhawks are moving in the right direction and will proceed to make improvements this offseason. Since Leipold was hired in April, he wasn't able to coach his team at all this spring, but now has a complete off-season. And now, when it went bad in my opinion, KU graduated 15 players, which will leave room for another recruiting class next season. That includes its top receiver, Kwame Lassiter. Change is never easy, especially with this developing program. And finally, the ugly of the season. Though this season consisted of a mostly rebuild, KU took some nasty defeats like the 45-7 loss to Baylor and a 59-7 loss at Iowa. KU also fell short this season with only 32 touchdowns, whereas the opponents totaled 68. To end on a high note, though, Kansas has improved dramatically from last year, especially in its offense. Looking back on last year's stats, Kansas seems to be heading in the right direction, and with the new coaching staff too. They now have a chance to recruit new players for the first time under the reign of Lance Leipold. After the break, Jordan shares his takeaways from this weekend's college football scene and preview for the college playoff. Stay tuned.
Living a healthy lifestyle can be very important. Make sure you get plenty of exercise every day. Even your dogs could use exercise and water. Look like this, not like this. Look like this, not this.
Rivalry weekend is arguably one of the most fun and exciting weekends in sports. The pure hate between universities that turn lopsided matchups on paper into great games is why we love college football. This year was no different with the playoff implications and upsets. Rivalry weekend this year had it all. The first big game of the day was the game, Ohio State versus Michigan. Arguably the best rivalry in sports, and this year it was a special treat, with both teams in the top 5 and the winner getting a spot in the Big Ten championship. Coming into the game, Michigan had not beat Ohio State in 10 years, and head coach Jim Harbaugh was 0-5 against the Buckeyes. In the Big House, the Wolverines handled Ohio State, causing the fans to storm the field and sending Michigan to the Big Ten championship and Ann Arbor into chaos. With the win, it means Michigan wins the Big Ten championship. They will be in the playoffs. And on the other end, it means Ohio State cannot win the Big Ten and will most likely be eliminated from playoff contention. Following up the big game was the equally as hate-filled Alabama versus Auburn Iron Bowl game. Alabama came into the game ranked number 2 in the nation and Auburn unranked. Even with this matchup difference, it is never easy to win in Jordan-Hare Stadium, especially during the Iron Bowl, and Auburn proved this. Auburn led by a touchdown with about a minute to play, but Alabama drove down the field, scoring a touchdown to force overtime. Alabama survived, winning in 4 overtimes and stunning the Auburn faithful, judging by the heartbreak on their reactions. It'll be interesting to see if the close win hurts Alabama's playoff chances, though. The final major game of the day was Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State in the Bedlam game. Oklahoma has dominated the rivalry, winning 90 games compared to Oklahoma State's meager 18 wins. In the history of the series this year was different, however. For starters, Oklahoma State was favored and ranked 7th in the nation. The Cowboys played like the favorites throughout, winning a tight game, and with only 1 loss and a date in the Big 12 championship game coming up, they are more than alive in the playoff picture. The playoff race looks a little chaotic right now. We know Georgia will make the playoffs no matter if they win or lose the SEC championship. Alabama will probably get in even if they lose a close game to Georgia, but might lose their spot if they get blown out. Michigan with a win is in, but cannot make the playoffs with a loss in the conference championship game. Cincinnati will most likely get in if they win their conference championship game, but if Oklahoma State wins the Big 12 with 1 loss, the committee will have an interesting decision to make. With so many playoff spots on the line, this is one of the most important conference championship weekends we have had in a long time, and I am certainly excited to see how things play out. Now I send it over to Kyle, who gives us the latest look into the NBA.
Thanks, Jordan. Excuse me. The NBA is in full swing this season as we are about nearly 2 months into the season. With the defending champions, Milwaukee Bucks, struggling in the early moments of the season due to COVID issues and injuries, this season has had a crazy start to it. We will start with the best. Who's been the best in the NBA this season in the first 2 months? A lot of people right off the bat will immediately go with the Brooklyn Nets due to their depth with Kevin Durant and James Harden. but it's obviously the Golden State Warriors, who have been the best team in the NBA this year by far. Stephen Curry is having another MVP caliber season, averaging about 28 points per game with a 41% three-point percentage so far through the season. He has helped along the way with his teammates, Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole. Juan Toscano-Anderson has been having a breakout couple of games where he got 13 points against the Philadelphia 76ers and 8 points against the Portland Trail Blazers. The Warriors have the best record in the NBA with a 17-win and 2-loss season so far. The crazy thing is, they are still missing James Wiseman and Klay Thompson, arguably two of their best players, due to injury, and they are still doing this well. Well, who's been doing the worst in the NBA? I think that's an easy one. It's the Houston Rockets. They went from an NBA Finals contender all the way down to being the worst team in the NBA, even with one of the top draft picks from last year's draft. Christian Wood is averaging 16 points per game and leading the team in rebounds per game with 11. The Rockets are currently on a 2-game winning streak over the Chicago Bulls and over the Charlotte Hornets in overtime. They play the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight, looking to continue that streak, but for now, they are the NBA's worst team, in my opinion. Who is the NBA's most shocking team so far? The Chicago Bulls. Everybody expected the Bulls to make the playoffs after having an amazing offseason and picking up some star players from different teams. But so far, they are the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. They stand ahead of the Milwaukee Bucks, who are the defending champions for now, and are led by DeMar DeRozan, who is averaging almost 26 points per game this season. Zach LaVine is closely behind him with a little over 25 points per game. And Lonzo Ball leads in rebounds per game and assists per game as he came from the New Orleans Pelicans. The team has been compared to with the 2013 Florida Gulf Coast Eagles, who were known as Dunk City in March Madness. A lot of people call this Bulls team Showtime, and they're trying to bounce back after a loss to the Miami Heat at home with a hopeful win tonight against the Charlotte Hornets at the United Center in Chicago. So who has been the most surprising player so far in the NBA? In my opinion, Seth Curry. He's the brother of Steph Curry, and he's been having a great season so far with the Philadelphia 76ers, where he's averaging almost 16 points per game and has played 34 minutes a game. He's averaging nearly 3.5 rebounds a game and 2.5 assists per game. And he's looking to continue his great season as he tries to lead the 76ers into a playoff spot, as they are currently one spot outside of the play-in game spot in the Eastern Conference. The NBA is having a lot of breakout performers this season, and we will have to see how it plays out as we go through the Christmas stretch and into 2022, inching closer and closer to what should be another spectacular NBA playoffs when May comes around. After the break, Riley Kramer will have insight on Week 12 of the NFL. Stay tuned.
Week 12 Sunday games had some shocking surprises in store for us as the Bengals dominated the Steelers from the start. Cincinnati's running back Joe Mixon was a huge playmaker in Sunday's game with 19 carries in the first half alone, helping the Bengals secure a strong lead going into half 24-3. The Bengals defensive end Trey Hendrickson was able to shut down quarterback Ben Roethlisberger with a huge play, causing a sack and fumble in the third quarter, putting Big Ben at 10.5 sacks this season. Mixon ended the game with 2 touchdowns, 165 yards, and 28 carries for the Bengals to take home the win 41-10. In other veteran quarterback news, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers had another good performance on Sunday against the Rams, as Rodgers threw for 307 yards, completing 28 out of 45 passes. Rodgers had some offensive help with running back A.J. Dillon picking up 90 yards and a touchdown. On the other side of the ball, the Rams offense was struggling to match the Green Bay, as their quarterback Matthew Stafford showed some old habits with his inconsistency by throwing a pick six while LA was trailing 30-17. The Rams loaded their roster up this year, hoping for a Super Bowl run by adding Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr. this season, but they couldn't pull off the win away from home yesterday. The Panthers traveled to Miami for Cam Newton's second game since rejoining the team. The veteran quarterback made a big scene last week about his return to Carolina, getting people excited that he's back. But his gameplay went downhill through Sunday's game with an underwhelming performance after running 1 yard to the end zone to tie the game with the Dolphins 7-7 in the first quarter. Newton completed just 5 out of 21 passes and was benched for their backup quarterback, P.J. Walker, who didn't have a much better performance. Miami, however, had a better game with quarterback Tua Tagovailoa throwing for 230 yards and a touchdown to secure the win 33-10 and to change their win streak from 3 to 4. That's all I have on Week 12 in the NFL. Back to you, Andrew.
On Saturday, Kansas men's basketball fell at the hands of Dayton 74-73 on what I can confirm to be a lucky off-balance shot that probably doesn't go in 99 out of 100 times, but nonetheless, the Jayhawks had several shortcomings that resulted in their first loss of the season. I'm not an expert, of course, but as a former basketball player and avid fan, I picked out 3 plays in which I think could have positioned the Jayhawks better if the result were different. And now it looks like at this time we're having some technical difficulties, but after this short commercial break, I will be back with those 3 plays.
Yeah, I always just clap in this part.
This is where everyone's talking amongst themselves. Do you know how to do it? Do you know how to do it?
Are we supposed to smile?
When do we start? Somebody over here already started.
Can we talk about the piccolo part? It's the most complicated one.
It is. If you listen, you're doing it when the band's not playing.
You have to tell me when it starts. I still don't know.
Here we go. Just clapping now. No humps. Nailed it.
I practiced this morning.
Farmer's just 2 people.
It has a right and a wrong way of doing it. No. Wrong.
I like my way better.
I don't know how to
1,
do
2,
the
3,
end.
4.
It's just I don't know the
Sorry.
head.
It's hard by yourself.
Welcome back to Rock Chalk Replay. It looks like our monitor is now up to speed, so we will start right where we left off. This first play, this is the first play that I think could have changed the Jayhawks' outcome against Dayton on Friday. Now we'll see it and then we'll walk through it. So as you can see, Christian drives the ball, passes to DeJuan, and then out to Jalen Coleman, lands on the wing. Now, if Mitch Lightfoot would have got that rebound around 4 guys, it could have positioned the Jayhawks in a spot to get another offensive possession. But now, as you can see, Dayton comes down the floor in transition and puts the ball in the basket to continue that run up to 7 points. So again, one of those crucial plays where the bigs have kind of been a detriment to this team, but that is one of the 3 plays. Now the next play. So Remy Martin is kind of getting the offense jump-started here, finds Dave in the post. Now the point of this play was to get David McCormick a nice, easy jump hook in the lane. But as you can see, that does not play out. What does play out is Christian Brown goes up for a shot, misses. David McCormick corrals the board but is unable to finish, something that he's struggled with throughout the course of the season. That was one of those plays, again, that if David would have got the ball in the basket, it would have propelled the Jayhawks in front by 1 with just minutes to play. Definitely something to look forward to in the next few games, something to see if Dave can kind of get his feet under him and the ball in the basket. And finally, with just seconds to play, Dayton has the ball, goes in for a shot. Dave with the big block, but as you can see, Christian had the opportunity to box out his man, which he didn't do. A simple box out or 2 hands and grabbing the rebound, that's a KU possession. Instead, Dayton recovers, grabs the ball, and that miracle shot to send the Flyers to the championship game. Now that is all I have for this episode of Rock Chalk Replay. So thank you guys all for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe and Rock Chalk Jayhawks.